To kick us off, here's kind of the theme that I want you to keep in mind for this show. It comes from Sun Tzu's The Art of War. If you know the enemy and know yourself, you need not fear the result of 100 battles. If you know yourself but not the enemy, for every victory gained, you will also suffer a defeat. And if you know neither the enemy nor yourself, you will succumb in every battle. The reason we brought that up is I would make the argument that in many ways, I think we are getting a new understanding of who our enemy or enemies may be. And it may be different than we would have assumed 3, 4, 5 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe we are getting a new notion and understanding about ourselves. And by ourselves, I mean those that we trust the most or have trusted the most. The folks in agencies like the FBI, the CIA, and who they were, what they did over the past years, maybe many years, that was perhaps not in our best interest. We have to understand that. We've got to be willing to understand it, learn it, face it, in order to understand what to do and how to interpret what we see going forward. Does that ring true?
It does. I think we have to also learn how to spot those that may not be who they say they are. We've gotten pretty good at that because we've been infiltrated many, many times, and we can spot it. And usually it's because they approach you first. That's one of the big tells right there. If they approach you to get across a narrative or to get access to something or whatever, instead of you offering it, that to me is one of the big tells. By the way, I just wanted to say, I forgot to mention, we're not paid by anyone. We're not paid by Russia. We're not paid by any foreign country. We're not paid by any internal lobby. We're paid by our sponsors and our subscribers, and that's it. So what you're getting here is the unvarnished truth, and we'll talk about how we've been right on a lot and really out front and told the truth when others wouldn't in a minute. But back to you.
That's right. It's also important, I think, Todd, to point out that for the sponsors that need vetting, you and the team have vetted them quite carefully to make sure that what we think is in fact the case.
That's correct. We're not just picking anybody who will pay us. We don't do that.
Okay. All right. So let's dive in. We're going to talk about something international to begin here. Let's take a look at this. The gentleman that posted this is Kirill Dmitriev. Mr. Dmitriev is a special envoy and what I understand to be a trusted confidant of Putin in Russia. Now, that may give us a start. May give some people a start. But look at what he posted. And this came out yesterday, about just afternoon. Breaking: CIA just declassified documents that revealed that then Vice President Biden intervened to suppress an internal report exposing alleged corruption by his family in Ukraine, and reportedly pressured to remove a Ukrainian official who had uncovered such wrongdoing. Who released it? CIA Director John Ratcliffe. And you can see his release on X yesterday, just before, about 8 hours before Mr. Dmitriev posted his. So very interesting. If you look at this and you look up on X, you can actually download the full report that was released. We're going to focus on a couple key things in it. But more importantly, think about the notion that a key confidant of Putin is one of the ones pointing to this and saying, this is important. And if you recall, we have looked at him in the past to check to make sure, is this really the gentleman he claims to be? And indeed, it does appear so. This is his account on X. And in fact, we're going to show you something toward the end of this conversation that will again confirm this. So think about this for a minute. Again, why is he weighing in and apparently trying to help us understand something that perhaps we will decide is very important to understand? Here's another thing that I found just before airtime that I think sheds a bit of light on who this gentleman is. This goes back to April 19th. And in this, he posts, "Today, Christians across the world, Catholic, Protestant, and Orthodox, celebrate the resurrection together. A rare and beautiful moment of unity in faith, hope, and love. May it inspire us to walk closer together." pretty interesting post for a special envoy who, in fact, has been here in the U.S.
I was going to
And
say he came to D.C. He's a financial guy.
he is.
Yeah.
He is. He is CEO of one of their financial and economic development groups, and again, a close confidant of Putin. So the reason I share this is because we have, in past weeks, we've talked carefully and repeatedly about the attacks, if you will, on Christianity going on around the world. And yet here's a gentleman standing up in favor and support of Christianity. Also note the date, April 19th. What was that date in history? Do we remember?
No, what's April 19th?
April 19th is the day that the British attacked Lexington and Concord in 1775.
Interesting.
Coincidence? Yeah, maybe. Okay. Following the post we just showed you from Mr. Dmitriev, he posted this: Biden provoked the war in Ukraine to cover up his family's corruption. The truth is coming out and justice must follow. And then he is responding to his own post about an hour before.
I think maybe here's sorry to interrupt you, a good time to jump in on just something we posted 6 years ago.
Sure.
I want to highlight how early CDM is. Let me bring this up here. If you go to CDM.press on the top menu, I'm just going to bring that on. And then you go to the far right top menu, second line, Ukraine files. Here's a bunch of stuff that we put out a long time ago. And if you go to the far right, well, the first article is about corruption in Ukraine and how we found all that. A lot of information on the Ukrainians that came and tried to warn DOJ of what was going on. But also this article, which was part of the DNI report that was just released, that Poroshenko, the former president, was paid $100 million by Burisma to shut down the investigation. So we reported this in 2019. This article was originally published October 18th, 2019. And we got a lot of calls from some very important people about this. And then we were massively attacked and deplatformed. Lost 500,000 followers, debanked 5 times, violence, firebombs, tracking family members, all kind of stuff that hasn't been good. But we were early and we were right. And I just want to highlight that, Bill, that that's why you come to CDM is we're not paid by anybody and we can put stuff out like that.
That's great. That's great. All right, let me go ahead and put this back up and we'll continue on. So here's another view. This is Mr. Dmitriev on the left and of course Biden on the right. Same quote from the last thing, and this was picked up by Bricks News. So this dialogue, if you will, from Mr. Dmitriev has been picked up really all around the world. Folks are paying attention to this because it means something to have a Russian high-ranking official, especially in his position, appearing to aid understanding regarding what's going on with Biden. Here is Benny Johnson, one of the Washington correspondents and the national correspondent, and he's highlighting the actual documents that were released by DNI John Ratcliffe. Here's his quote: newly declassified records revealed that Ukrainian officials viewed the Biden family's business dealings as evidence of a double standard within the United States government toward matters of corruption and political power. The Ukrainian officials, even the good guys, were looking at us like, wait a minute, the U.S. has got a double standard. Some of those are bad guys. He goes on, an email from former DNI James Clapper notes that Vice President Biden requested the intelligence report on these concerns not be disseminated. And let's go to excerpts from the actual releases from John Ratcliffe. And you can read the top one. And again, it underscores that the officials viewed the alleged ties of U.S. Vice President's family to corruption in Ukraine as evidence of a double standard, meaning they thought we were partly bad guys. And indeed, there were some apparently stuck within the government. Okay. One of the, know yourself things in all of this. Down at the bottom, you can see, and this is from Clapper at the time, reporting a conversation apparently that he had with the NSA and with the VP at that time, Biden. Good morning. I just spoke with VP and NSA, and he, meaning the VP, would strongly prefer the report not be disseminated. He didn't want people to know what Ukraine knew. Does that make sense?
It does.
Okay. Many will recall what we're going to show next. This is where Biden, I'll call it stupidly, brags about his ability to manipulate Poroshenko and others, and he used $1 billion loan guarantee to do so. Let's look at this.
Not but it just happened to be that was the assignment I got. I got all the good ones, so I got Ukraine, and I remember going over convincing our team or others to convincing us that we should be providing for loan guarantees. And I went over, I guess, the 12th, 13th time to Kyiv, and I was supposed to announce that there was another $1 billion loan guarantee. And I had gotten a commitment from Poroshenko and from Yatsenyuk that they would take action against the state prosecutor, and they didn't. So they said they were walking out to press conference. I said, no, I said, we're not going to give you the $1 billion. They said, you have no authority. You're not the president. The president said. I said, call him. I said, I'm telling you, you're not getting the $1 billion. I said, you're not getting the $1 billion. I'm going to be leaving here. And I think it was, 6 hours? I looked, I said, I'm leaving in 6 hours. If the prosecutor's not fired, you're not getting the money. Well, son of a bitch. Got fired.
So what did he just say? He threatened not to give the loan guarantee. And why? Because they were investigating both Burisma through the state prosecutor. They were investigating Burisma, and as part of Burisma, his son, Hunter Biden.
Yep.
And by extension, perhaps himself. So again, our eyes are being drawn to this by a special envoy from Russia saying this is important. The next thing he says is going to hit some people as, oh gosh, where are we going now? But I'm going to ask for your indulgence a little bit, and I'll show you why I think this may be another signal in all of this. Here was his next post after the first two that we said. He put this out at 1:28 p.m. Yesterday afternoon. It says, Drop 4822 was published on this date exactly 5 years ago. Now, what does he mean by Drop 4822? Well, he is referring to what's known as a Q drop. And you can see it here. This is from another one of the folks that's been tracking this internationally. And they put up the video and they put up the Mr. Dmitriev's note, and they actually have the Q drop. Let me zoom in on it so you can read it. And it becomes even more interesting when you begin to think about the dates. Yesterday was October 7th. Here's how it reads. What happens if Biden became POTUS, knowing he, through Hunter Plus One, took massive amounts of bribes to change, look the other way, U.S. policy towards Ukraine in favor of Ukraine? Would Ukraine own and control the White House? Well, it's an interesting question. But note that they're talking about Biden. What happens if he became POTUS? Look at the date, October 7th, 2020. When was the election in which Biden supposedly won? 27 days later. Interesting that speculation would be posted on October 7th, and then indeed Biden becomes president. And what did we see after that? Well, we saw a number of things, including hundreds of millions of dollars sent to Ukraine, much of which went with the accolades and the glee of Congress. Mm-hmm. We in the past have shown Congress took a vote on about $100 million package, as I recall. It ended up passing, and believe it or not, many of those in Congress were waving Ukrainian flags on the floor of Congress and had to be cautioned not to do so. It was improper to do so in Congress. Who would do that? When was the last time we saw Congress hold up American flags and wave them after a vote?
And when was it? How many times did Judge Duffy go to Ukraine during this period? I think 9 times.
I don't recall, but quite a number. Quite a number.
Yeah.
Very interesting. I didn't take the time, but the other thing to keep in mind is how many of our congressmen and senators and congresswomen went to Ukraine and bent the knee to Zelensky over the course of the beginning in the conflict. Dozens, maybe hundreds. Off the top of my head, Rich McCormick happened to be one, and we've got one of his favorite pictures, bending the knee to Zelensky during one of his trips. So many, many went is the bottom line. How is this possible? Well, then later today, we had yet again another development. Representative Paulina Luna from Florida announced that she had officially confirmed a meeting with Kirill Dmitriev, special envoy. She goes back through this, and she says some nice things about why it's important not to be enemies, but to be friends. Well, his actions so far appear darn friendly to me. And indeed, he responds to this note just about an hour before airtime and delivered, "Dear Congresswoman Luna, thank you for your courageous stand for peace and dialogue. The world depends on the U.S. and Russia listening, understanding each other, and working together to address global challenges. I look forward to our meeting and constructive discussion." Very, very interesting.
She's the one charged with releasing a lot of these withheld informational files on Epstein, et cetera, right? JFK.
She is part of the oversight group that would be doing that, and indeed promised to get a number of things out, and yet they still seem to be stuck behind walls of one type or another. So yes. So we're not sure. Again, part of the lesson under all of this is to not make a judgment that you cannot amend as you learn more about people. We would have 2 years ago and 4 years ago specifically, when we were being told that Russia was behind getting Trump elected or had attempted to interfere in our elections, we would have believed that. Many people did believe it. However, what we've learned now is that was an entirely created piece by factions within the government led by Obama, and yet had people from the FBI and the CIA and FISA warrants and everything else created to create a narrative that they could rely on. But it was false. But we would have believed it back then. Nowadays, we know better. That is a lesson for us to keep flexible in our understanding and watch what people do, not necessarily just what they say.
The consequences of their actions. Obama could speak very well, but the consequences were horrific. That's what I look at.
That's correct.